Welcome to Source Medicine. My name is Nikolay Ayerov, quantum security specialist and founder of Avo Peace.
And I'm Anita, medical herbalist, biomedical scientist, intuitive healer, and frequency medicine practitioner. Together, we explore what it means to remember that healing doesn't start with fixing something broken, but with listening to what is already whole.
Each week, we'll travel between the seen and the unseen, from ancient herbal wisdom, nutrition, and nervous system science, to energy work, polarity, and the quiet intelligence that moves through all of us.
Our conversations aren't prescriptions, they are invitations. We are not here to tell you what's true, but to help you feel truth in your own body.
So wherever you are, walking, driving, taking a rest, let it remind you that you are part of the medicine.
This is Source Medicine.
How you doing, guys? We're here talking about gut health. Gut health is probably one of the most important things we have to understand when we're talking about the body, as it rules much more than just how you digest food. But digesting food is a big part of it, as it feeds the physical body. And with that, we have our fantastic specialist in this field, Dr. Anita Wasik, at your service. So please,
I am
grace
pleased
us.
that you pronounce my surname correctly. I'm proud of you.
Perfect.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Already more than 2,000 years ago, the Hippocrates, the father of the modern medicine, claimed that all diseases begin in the gut. It sounds a bit philosophical, but the gut is the place where now the science meets ancient wisdom. Yeah, so from Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, all this ancient system, the long time ago noticed that the gut is not only important for the digestion, but actually for our overall health, from the immunity, metabolic regulation, to even mental health. Gut is also not just for digesting food, it's also for digesting our emotions. And I want to get to that point. Let's start with statistics, because that will also tell us how many people have struggled with gut problems. So around a quarter of the world population suffer from any kind of digestive problems. And quite often the digestive problems are linked to, let's say, diseases like liver problems, inflammatory bowel diseases, pancreatitis, and so on. So pretty much diseases that gives digestive symptoms such as abdominal pain, abdominal cramps, nausea, or constipation, or diarrhea, bloating, gas, reflux, and so on. But we have to remember that many people, most of people who suffer from gut disease, they even don't know that their symptoms are related to the gut. They go from doctor to doctor and they perform countless amount of tests, still not knowing where the low energy comes from, skin issue, comes from joint pains, and so on, because many diseases actually originate from the gut. And it's known that, for example, asthma, autism, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, metabolic syndrome, mood disorders like depression or anxiety, or even Parkinson's come from the gut disbalance. So many symptoms like fatigue, breathing difficulties, sleeping problems are related to the disbalance in the gut flora, disbalance in the mucosal and let's say epithelial barrier that covers digestive system. And many doctors don't even look at the gut when seeing symptoms in different, let's say, body systems. So somebody comes for headaches, let's give a pill, and that's it. That particular pill can make the situation worse at temporarily releasing the symptoms, then in long term will create even more problem in the digestive system, because digestive disorders have many root causes. And if we talk about the physical root causes, the first of them is usually a genetics. I mean, that's how the science and modern medicine blames that. Then we have particular genes or the mutation variation of the gene that may lead to particular gut problems. There are some genes that will affect our gut health. We have to remember that genes are really not final and the most important root cause. Genes are maybe responsible for the 5% what's really happening in our body. The epigenetic is more important. That means how our environment, what we eat, what kind of air we breathe, how much stress we have in life, how we digest and process our emotions will affect directly the genes. So the genes will switch on and switch on, depends on the stimulus. And that is more linked to the gut health and any other health problem. Yeah, the number 2 root cause would be the low stomach acid. And that's a big topic also in medical field and very misunderstood, because we need to have strong stomach acid, so-called hydrochloric acid, to be able to not only digest protein, but also sterilize the food we eat and give the signals to the liver to release the bile. But modern medicine created a picture that most people with digestion issues have too much of the stomach acid because they experience, for example, reflux or heartburn. This is a big misinformation, because when people experience symptoms like a heartburn, they usually have too little stomach acid. And why? Because the stomach acid is responsible of closing the kind of entrance to the stomach, yeah? So when we don't have enough of stomach acid, this entrance cannot close. And what will happen? The part of the food, which is mixed anyway with the whatever amount of the stomach acid which is there in the stomach, will go back to the esophagus and will give us the feeling of a burning. So what the doctors are doing, they prescribe antacids, so medication that is lowering the stomach acid. In long term, it creates even more problems, because we start to have less and less stomach acid, so we don't digest proteins, we don't absorb nutrition, so we don't sterilize the food, so people are more prone to gut dysbiosis. We will not then give a signal to the liver to release the bile, and if we don't have proper bile flow, we cannot digest fat, we cannot absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K.
Can you define what gut dysbiosis means? It's a fancy word that I don't know a lot of people understand.
Yes, so gut dysbiosis means a disbalance in the composition and the amount of bacteria that are in our gut. Yeah, normally the small intestine, which is the longest one, shouldn't have much of the bacteria. Only the bowel, the colon, the big intestine should have them. Dysbiosis means that more pathogenic bacteria also can be present in our gut, also in the small intestine. And the composition of the beneficial bacteria is, let's say, decreased. And that creates a problem, because that gives, of course, symptoms that will lead to the inflammation in the gut, and the whole inflammation in the gut will start other processes.
So may I just mention a few things, just so we can kind of have this a linear kind of journey that we can go on, because I know a lot of people enjoy to kind of follow a story. So if we just look at how digestion works, because it's so fascinating, and it's not just the gut. The gut is just the processor for the most part. But from my limited understanding of the biomedical field and the biomechanical field, first you have an impulse to want to ingest fuel, right? Either your body needs more glucose, either it needs some vitamins or some minerals. And then obviously, fats and proteins. That's the basic understanding of what your body typically needs to continue functioning, right? So from that, your body obviously gives a signal, right? And that signal says, "Hey, I need building blocks. I need sustenance." So, we can even eventually go into maybe a little bit of the craving aspect of it as well. That'll be a great topic because that is the immediate people struggle with that mentally, but they also struggle with it emotionally. And there's physical symptoms like, hunger pains, fatigue, low blood sugar, all this stuff. If you don't mind, let's understand maybe that process first, and then we'll work our way down and understand how that works in a very like tangible way. And afterwards, we'll get more into the emotional side of things and maybe the energetic side of things. But let's kind of just go through the whole system of how the body works in a very like tangible and easy to follow way. I think that's a vibe in how I say things. So how would you say the mechanics of a craving would work in like when you start wanting sustenance? What biological processes are happening to first want that, right?
Mhm.
And then how can people know when that is themselves or maybe even something hijacking them? Because we also know that different organisms and different life forms, be them parasites, be them anything on those lines, can connect into our nervous system and also give signals. Because I know in my journey, I definitely experienced a sovereignty challenge where I'm very particular in making my own decisions. So if something is making decisions for me, I typically am not on board with that. Um, so how can we start that process and how can people start navigating that? The
Mhm.
floor is yours.
My approach is that if you don't feel hungry, just don't eat because body is so intelligent that it will tell you when to eat. Well, sometimes the hunger may start later. For example, when somebody experiences the symptoms of hypoglycemia, so the blood sugar starts to drop, the hunger may come a bit later. There are first other symptoms like, dizziness, a bit of anxiety, sweating, and so on. But that's just small percentage of people. But let's start from the hunger. Everything what is happening in the digestive system will be regulated at the neuronal, hormonal, and immunological level. Yeah, so it's an interconnection between the nervous cells, the hormones, and even the gut biome, meaning microbes in the gut. I don't want to go with all this name of fancy hormones and so on. Let's not make too complicated, but pretty much there are hormones that wherever we are hungry, they are secreted and they give the signal to the brain that, hey, we need to eat. So the brain starts to the process through the autonomic nervous system. It will activate the parasympathetic nervous system to the rest and digest to starts to secrete different enzyme, digestive enzyme, and that starts already in our mouth. So whenever we take a piece of food, amylase, which is the one of the enzymes that digest the carbohydrates, will start to work, and that's when our digestion already starts. It doesn't start in the stomach, it doesn't start in the gut, it starts
Yeah.
in our
Breaking
mouth.
down the
And
simple
actually,
sugars.
even
Yeah.
before, it's very interesting because even before, when you even think about the food, the body starts to already produce the stomach acid, digestive juices, and so on. But okay, we are in the mouth now. We take the
Yeah.
piece of food, we chew well, hopefully well, because each piece should be beaten like 30 to 40 times. So you
Yeah, I
really
don't know how many
mix
people
with.
listen to that, but that's a whole different story because that's a very mindful practice where like many people also just they swallow food in larger chunks, which also starts affecting digestion, and that
Mhm,
starts, that's already something that starts.
mhm,
And also another little aspect that I feel like a lot of people don't speak about is the use of hands, right? Because we're conditioned to use things that disconnect us from food from the beginning, right?
mhm,
So if you're using a metal fork, a plastic fork, or something that's connecting already to your food, you're already kind of disconnecting a part of that balance cycle of wow, like I'm starting to understand food because your hands have like very specific biology when you first even connect with someone's skin or connect or interact with any kind of environmental thing, there's a very unique biological response that happens as well. That's been very scientifically studied and proven that when, cultures like from the Middle East or from
Africa.
even like
Mhm.
Japan and stuff like that, when they eat, with their hands, also, when they eat with their hands, there's a much greater brain to gut connection that you have actually different biomes that start, or should I say, chemical compounds that start happening that increase digestion and make things better, make you more connected to the food that you're eating. And I just wanted to put that in there because I feel like that's a very many obviously in Western culture and most of Europe we're conditioned to be like, oh, that's so uncultured and so uncivilized to eat without a utensil or without a fork, especially in like the fancier England, places where everything's posh and everything is elegant and everything is, but that's also, that I think that's a very significant factor in a lifestyle approach to things that yeah, that does, I think, would make a fairly substantial impact actually in the digestive cycle. So I would love to hear your opinion on that, and then we can continue down the track.
We have a lot of receptors in our hand. When we touch the food,
Yeah,
that gives already the information to the brain what it can be actually. Look at people who cannot see. They will smell the food, they will touch the food, they know what they eat. Yeah, they don't necessarily need to taste yet because we have so many receptors on our heads, also on our feet. That's why it's so good to walk
exactly.
barefoot, but that's another topic. This gives us also a bit of time of mindfulness.
Yeah,
Yeah, when we touch the food, it can be really calming also for our nervous system because it knows it's something safe. When
yeah,
we use fork and knife, we kind of don't touch it, so we don't know, the body or the brain doesn't even understand, is it okay, is it not, it has to taste or it
yeah.
has to smell. But when you touch, it gives already the body, okay, this I can eat. This already starts to impact our digestion system through the parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah, so we feel more relaxed and more digestion processes can happen in that state. But when we finally take this food to the mouth, and as I said, the digestion starts already in the mouth. We bite. Yeah, we have to bite that well.
Another
The
presence moment, you know.
in
Yeah,
another
yeah,
mindfulness and another
yeah.
way to really regulate our digestion system, but actually also our nervous system. Because when you eat with this mindfulness approach, when you really focus on the texture of the food, the smell, the colors on
Spices,
your
the
plate,
tastes, yeah,
exactly,
everything.
it really calms down. The more
Yeah.
calm down you are during eating, the better your digestion works.
Automatically dropping all of the cortisol, all everything, which also increases digestion. So it's like we haven't even kind of close to the gut, and we're already in like a massive digestive process
Yeah.
that most people skip, I would say,
Mhm.
completely.
In the modern world, people
Yeah,
don't pay attention that meals are such an important part of the day and should be celebrated. First of all, because we should be grateful that we have something on our plate. But other thing is that we live in such a hurry that eating is considered as useless moment.
yeah,
People eat in hurry, they grab something from fast food restaurant and they run and they eat at the same time. Before even starting to eat, I would suggest like really calming down, like 2 minutes, just a breath, sitting and waiting before you start to eat. So your body gets the signal, okay, now you are not in hurry, so I'm not in sympathetic mode, which is exactly fight and fly response, where there's a lot of adrenaline, there are cortisol, which will shut down the digestion. And you sit for a few minutes and then start to eat without your phone, without any distraction, with people who maybe you love, and you just can have a really nice conversation. When you are able to do all of this, already so much of the digestion process happens. When the food gets to the stomach doesn't have that big job anymore to do. Well, it still needs to process proteins, yeah, because the proteins will not be digested in the mouth, but the stomach acid will be produced at enough level if we come down. So let's say the process is happening in the stomach starts to digest it, and that goes further, it goes to duodenum, then it meets another players, because the pancreas will release the digestive enzyme to the duodenum, the biliary tracts will release the bile, which is produced in the liver, so they all meet in the duodenum, and they have to meet there, because otherwise, if the bile will not enter the game, what will happen? The acid food from the stomach would enter the duodenum, the first part of the, the small intestine, and it will damage the lining of the intestine. So all this digestion compounds are there, and they start to, let's say, excrete from the food the nutrients. So the nutrients can be absorbed in the long, over 6 meters long, small intestine.
So for more, what do I understand as someone who's not fully in the biomedical understanding of things, but I'm more of the normal human way of understanding how the the biological track works, where there's just we humans I think connect more through story. So how does what is the main purpose of the stomach? It's obviously to break down from what I understand, biomass, right? Or it's just some food that you're eating, and that food is typically going to be broken down into protein, carbohydrate, and fat, right? And from most of my understanding, I think the bile deals with the fat, right? The most, and then the protein is broken down into the different easier forms of glucose to start
amino acids.
Amino acids, forgive me, yes. And then obviously, like if you're eating meat or something or heavier protein, that obviously needs more softening because meat, that protein is a much more fibrous and it has much more work that has to happen for the acids to really break down the proteins. So I also kind of want to bring in the concept of, because there's many talks right now about like protein is like the most important possible thing in the world for just about every diet. There's the carnivore diet, there's the paleo diet where you're basically running away from sugar like it's garlic for a vampire. So you have all of these things that are happening in many people's lives and social media and everything, because we're bombarded constantly with what do we put in the stomach, right? Well, how do we do this? What do we do? So how do we find a balance? How is what I'm putting in my stomach like operating? And how is it getting used? And what problems can happen as well when maybe some things are mixed? I know there's a lot of questions I'm throwing in, but
many more than at the biochemistry exam.
So this is not a PhD dissertation, but
luckily. Well, let's start with the stomach function, then the bile function, because we want to break it down. So the stomach function is to exactly produce the stomach acid, so hydrochloric acid. That's the acid which will, let's say, digest, dissolve proteins. So proteins are the compounds of the food that are present in the meat, in the eggs, in legumes, in fish and cheese. Stomach will also produce some kind of intrinsic factor. So that's very important protein, because without that protein, vitamin B12 cannot be absorbed. And the whole problem starts, we don't have energy, neurological condition starts to happen. It starts really simple, like you feel like numbness in the hands or feet and
Fogginess in the head.
fogginess. Yeah. So many people actually do not have enough of B12, and in the modern world, it's really linked to the overuse of stomach acid suppressing medication.
So this is actually very
Yeah.
interesting. I'm glad you brought this up because B12 is a very, especially, if you're like on a vegetarian diet or something like that, that's even more prevalent. But what specifically creates challenges, you said, with B12? You're saying there's an amino acid that isn't properly produced that would extract that
Protein.
out of food?
Yeah, because
Okay.
the vitamin B, when you eat from the food, like
Yeah.
it's in B12 is only presented in animal-based products, meat, eggs. Yeah, in plants we don't have it.
Because
So
the soil was also robbed from it, because at a certain point, the soil had B12 that actually went into the fruits and the vegetables.
mhm,
But now the over farming has happened and not proper taking care of land and remineralizing the land. Now the land is basically not really giving back much into the vegetables, into the fruits.
yeah.
So that's why I think basically it's starved of all proper vitamins.
Yeah,
So
it's
even
not just B12,
yeah,
zinc, magnesium, all of
yeah.
the minerals are depleted nowadays in the soil because, as you said, overuse of pesticides and herbicides.
How can the listeners resolve, a better B12 absorption? Because I know a lot of
I would
people rely
say,
on shots and, external, like, putting B12 basically directly into your bloodstream from external sources,
mhm.
and different stuff like that, or even taking extra supplements or something like that.
I would
So,
say let's leave it the fixing thing a bit later
okay,
because
got
I
it.
think it will mix a bit. People will jump between
Got
function
it.
of the
Right.
stomach and the
Yeah,
bile and all of this.
that makes sense.
I wanted to touch the topic,
Yeah,
how you actually
we will.
address the
Yeah.
whole digestion.
Because that's a big issue I know for like a lot of people's energy
Mm-hmm,
levels. So that's why I kind of
mm-hmm.
jumped on it there. But we'll definitely leave it for later.
Let's continue with the stomach. Whatever happens in the stomach will give a signal to the digestive enzymes, to the bile to be released. So it will communicate, the stomach will communicate hormonally and neurologically with pancreas and with the liver. Stomach also sterilizes the food, yeah, because it's very acidic environment, like 1.5 to 2 pH.
Yeah, very, very.
So it's very like most of the bacteria and parasitic eggs or fungus will not survive that environment.
What about
So
like probiotics? Because a lot of people, think getting probiotics or into like from yogurts and different stuff, they're thinking, they take all these, good bacteria, but then the one thought is,
we
will
need to
actually
know
even
that
get
those are, let's say acidic bacteria prefer a bit of acidic environment, so they
okay, so
may
certain thing.
survive better
Okay.
that. But if people take probiotics, usually they are encapsulated.
Yeah,
So there are special capsules that will
that will protect
protect
it. Okay.
the bacteria from being killed already in our stomach.
What about the esophagus? Because that's a quite important organ as well that, we also don't want to completely skip because
Mm-mm,
you mentioned as well, when the stomach is the valves aren't working, obviously acid can come back up, right?
mm-hmm,
And a lot of people have, heartburn and they have like indigestion and all of that feels like it's an area here, not necessarily in your stomach, right? What specifically causes the acid to start coming up? Would it be more like stress related, or is this more like if you're eating without being relaxed? Or is this more what you're specifically eating and the biological components that go, like if it's very acidic food or if it's, what really causes acid reflux
mm-hmm,
to start? Because it builds up over years. It's not a
mm-hmm.
tomorrow situation.
Functionally, structurally, is linked to low stomach acid, what I said,
Interesting.
because esophageal sphincter, so the entrance between the
Yeah.
esophagus and the stomach will not close. And why
Yeah.
the stomach acid will not be produced? Because this is the root cause of the, let's say, heartburn and the reflux, yeah, low stomach acid.
Okay.
But now, the low stomach acid, well, comes from somewhere. So it can be from the infection in the stomach and irritation of the lining of the stomach.
The acid has to go down to protect itself.
Yeah, well, stomach has special layer, to be also protected from not being digested by the, compounds which it produces by itself. Mineral deficiencies, especially zinc deficiency, which is really common because around 70 to 80% of the global population has a low zinc level, and stress. When we are in constant stress and the sympathetic nervous system is just overriding, the stress hormones will lead to the changes also in the production of the stomach acid. And there are two ways, even it can increase or decrease the production. But most it decreases, and it creates exactly the feeling of the heartburn because there's little stomach acid, and we just talk about this. But the major reasons are exactly the stress, nutritional deficiency, different infections, which shouldn't be there.
What causes these infections? Is it more or less the body starting to break down because of undernourishment? Do you think that's the number one concern? Because
Absolutely. We need nutrients to have a well-functioning immune system. Without functioning immune system, we can catch anything. So our immune system starts already in the throat.
Yeah, with the tonsils.
We have tonsils, exactly, which are kind of there to disinfect also the mouth. The food which we will swallow should be already to some level disinfected. Nutritional deficiency, yes, and then back to the stress. Because what is the biggest killer of our immune system? Exactly the stress. Yeah, because stress itself will deplete us from the nutrients. Yeah.
And make everything worse, essentially. So if you're nourished, let's just say, stress makes it even worse because now you're not eating right. Maybe you're eating the things that maybe you aren't serving you the best. So it makes the situation even worse. Where I would say if you are focused very much on keeping your body well fed and well nourished, stress would actually be less automatically, just because your body can tolerate more. But that's also a mindset. So if you do live a stressful life, being very specific about how you feed your body, because your body is the only thing that's keeping you here. So if you want to keep doing what you're doing, this is the most important vehicle you want to invest in. And investing in is just like we were mentioning, all these little small things that it's easy to ignore, but it makes stress significantly less just by itself. When the body is functioning as itself, as it's designed to, it's fantastic. It's an incredibly intelligent process, but it has a bandwidth and it can only operate to a specific degree of functionality that you allow it, because you are essentially the keeper of the body, and the body cannot do things on its own. It will sometimes force you into certain things with cravings and different things that it needs, like you would have strange food cravings or something like that. But for the most part, you need to be in partnership with your body. That means your consciousness, your personality, your mind has to say, okay, I need to put my body first in all of these processes, because then that allows a much more succinct digestive process and significantly reduce stress levels. Because if your body is just on a bare minimum, if you're not doing anything, but it has all of its nutrients, all of its carbohydrates, all of its proteins, all of its fats in, decent levels, and obviously you're not overeating, and you're, all of these things, all the smaller things like managing emotions, managing stress, I feel like that automatically becomes easier. So if your life feels out of control, I feel like just giving your body fuel that it needs is probably the most basic avenue into having a more balanced life. And then everything else can start orienting around it. But if you're driving a really nice fancy car and you're not putting proper gas into it, obviously the engine's going to break. So treat your fancy car like you would treat your Mercedes, all right? I just felt like that needed to be said.
Glad you did it.
Yeah.
But let's move from the stomach further, because we are still stuck at the function of the digestion system parts. The liver has over 500 functions. Yeah, one of them is to produce and release through the biliary ducts the bile. And the function of bile is exactly as we discussed already, the digestion of the fat, the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins, but not only. Without the bile, our bowel wouldn't move, because the bile supports the peristalsis. So exactly the movement, whatever we eat can move further down in the digestive system. And another important function is clean us from the toxin. Also toxins that are presented in the food or drink.
Obviously alcohol and different stuff like that we will,
Alcohol is actually number one for male, a root cause of any digestive issues.
Would you consider all alcohol? Like, doesn't matter if it's wine, beer, spirits.
Alcohol is alcohol.
Just in general, yeah. There's no difference.
No,
even
it's the same
the fancy
chemical
things in wine
structure,
that everyone says, "Oh, this is great for you once a day," and all this stuff. And
the red wine has its own benefits because
it's a
of
little better, of course.
polyphenols. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
better,
exactly.
but for the liver, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's still the same killer.
Yeah.
No matter if it's a beer, is it vodka, or is it red wine? Yeah. Alcohol is alcohol. Just the ethanol, it's the same chemical compound. There is another player also in the digestion, which is the pancreas. Pancreas produces and releases digestive enzymes, which are supposed to break down to even smaller pieces the proteins, the fat, and the carbohydrates. The protein will be broken to amino acids, which are the building blocks of everything what is happening in the body. Yeah? Our cell membranes, enzymes. The fat will be digested to smaller droplets, and the fat, everybody, as you said, are now telling how much protein we should eat, but there's not much of the discussion about how much fat we should eat. Our brain is mostly fat. Each cell membrane.
There's a lot of fat-free mentality as well in our society, where we're switching away from where the last 20 years, there was a whole thing around, butter is this or that, but then we went from butter and more natural sources to margarine, to vegetable oils, to all of these also poisons, because seed oils are adds alcohol, I would say, if not worse, potentially, because seed oils, I don't know the biology behind it. And I'm sure you do, but why are seed oils so much worse for you than, let's say, the avocado oil or the olive oil or the coconut oil or all the more richer oils that actually have health benefits? I know there's something to do with the omegas.
It's about saturation. Yeah. It's about the chemical structure and how the oil is actually used. Seed oils are polyunsaturated. That means they have so many places in the structure that can be broken. And what's happening in that broken part of that molecule, let's say, to be more precise, oxygen will bind. And what it will create? Reactive oxygen species that are very inflammatory. If we use this every now and then, to put on salad, probably nothing will happen. But the worst is when we heat this oil. This type of oils have quite low, so-called burning point. So they shouldn't even.
Olive oil is also.
Yes.
I don't know how many. There's definitely. Yeah, in the Greek community, especially, I know there's many people cook with olive oil, and I don't know if there's conversations about that, but olive oil is one of those things that should not be heated. That's why it's a great salad dressing, but it's not really a cooking.
It's fantastic oil. It's anti-inflammatory. But when you warm it, it doesn't work like this.
It becomes a little toxic.
If you really need to fry, I wouldn't suggest to fry food often. But if you really need to fry your food, use only saturated fat. That means coconut oil, ghee butter, or lard. Our thought about all this oil was changed few
Yeah.
decades ago when food industry decided to introduce seed oils and the margarine, and that was exactly also breaking point, let's say, in the medicine, when it was told us that eating butter or eggs will increase the cholesterol level,
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
which is absolutely not true, because the cholesterol from the food cannot be easily absorbed. If somebody has a problem with cholesterol, it's not linked to the food. It's really rarely linked to the food.
And
It's
I'm pretty sure
linked to the
yeah.
stress level and the function, the condition of the liver, because the liver is the organ that produces the cholesterol. And it will do that if it's full of toxins, the stress, the emotions which are not processed, and so on.
And I'm pretty sure that what you're saying on, especially on the eggs, everybody's mother that in existence has has heard this in her life. Oh, eggs, if you eat more than two eggs a day, you're gonna have a high blood pressure and all this stuff, and so and so and so forth. But eggs, I don't think have any impact on cholesterol. There's been enough independent studies down here and there that basically proves like there's one guy that ate eggs, just eggs for like a month straight, and his cholesterol levels didn't change just about anything.
One of my clients who I recommended to eat few eggs per day because of other health conditions, but we wanted to monitor his cholesterol because he was actually scared of the cholesterol, and his cholesterol level dropped after a month. We have to remember that egg yolk also contains lecithin, the compound that lowers the cholesterol level. Back to the fat itself. So the fat is important because it's not just our brain, which is just a piece of fat. Fat builds all the membranes ourselves. Without the fat, we cannot even exchange the information between the cells, including nerve cells. So the nerve impulse will not go well, like is seen in, for example, MS, in all these neurodegenerative diseases. And that's another interesting topic. Just to mention, not to go further, but the number of neurodegenerative diseases increased since the medicine started to incorporate cholesterol-lowering medication.
And this is exactly what I wanted, the statins that are used now
Mm-hmm.
because there's a whole talk about how, good HDL and bad HDL, all this stuff. And why do you believe a pandemic basically of high cholesterol happened? What do you believe is the cause? Is it because of the introduction of seed oils, or is it a combination of everything that's slowly building
It's
up and
it's
really
combination, the whole culture of the eating and what the perfect diet is. It's such a big misinformation. That's one thing. We have all the toxins around us in the air, in the water, in the food, which eventually cause the inflammation, because the problem with the cholesterol is also because of the inflammation. When we have inflammation in the body, that's exactly why the liver produces cholesterol. So when you see a high cholesterol level on your blood results, well, first the doctor will tell you, okay, take the statins. But actually, is that a root cause? No, that means that there is some inflammatory process going on, because that cholesterol is produced by the liver to enter the inflammation process, to exactly calm down the inflammation process, because inflammation process, which usually starts in the blood vessels. And that's another topic of arteriosclerosis, when they tell us that it's because the veins are blocked because of the cholesterol. This is not true. Actually, it's because of the calcium that binds there when there's inflammation. And why the calcium is there? Calcium should be in the bones, and it's not in the bones because we don't have enough of D vitamin combined with K vitamin.
so it's a mineral issue more
It's
than
a
it is.
mineral, absolutely.
Yeah.
Vitamins and
A
mineral
mineral deficiency is
disbalance.
basically that's when you're thinking, okay, I just got diagnosed with high blood pressure or whatever's going on. I have high, and the doctor says you need to get on this medication. So in your head, you would automatically be like, what minerals do I need to now supplement essentially? How do I
Mhm.
rebalance my system instead of how do I just put some kind of, because from my understanding, statins are basically slowly weakening your body. They're not necessarily, I'm not sure the whole biological process. I know you do, but can you explain that aspect of like what is a statin actually doing to your body? Then what, it basically remineralization is the next logical step that needs to be taken
Mhm.
essentially in the process, correct?
Mhm. So statins, just by lowering cholesterol, will actually deplete the person from compound that it's important for handling inflammation, yeah, from the cholesterol.
Yes.
Another, it will deplete the body from coenzyme Q10.
Oh,
This is
yes.
a coenzyme which is like in every cell. We need it to produce energy. The most concentrated place of Q10 in our body is our heart, because heart has to work constantly. It's filled with coenzyme Q10. If you start to take statins, this coenzyme Q10 starts to drop. So the blood pressure starts to change, the arrhythmia starts to come, any kind of heart diseases can pop up. Another thing, statins will also deplete us with another minerals. And if you take statins for quite a long time, for few years, it may lead to osteoporosis and of course the bone fractures.
So essentially, by taking statins, you're saying you're doing the exact opposite of remineralizing your body. You're actually basically
Depleting the body.
it's like when you're thirsty, you're drinking caffeine, which is what do you call it? A something that steals water from your body instead of taking.
Dehydrating.
What I wanted to say is, so statins are basically you're swinging in the wrong direction in that. So instead of being like, okay, I have an issue, let's just say my body is not in homeostasis, and your body is structured and made to be always in homeostasis. If it and it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's going to do its best to constantly be in homeostasis, right?
Mhm.
So the co-creative part of this is to help it be in so it's not just being like, hey man, I'm really trying to steer this thing, but I'm getting like I have one leg left and I have one arm and I'm trying to hop my way through this process. But let's give your body two legs, functional walking capacity, everything that it can, because a driver can only drive as well as they can see what's in front of it, right? And to see how, what's in the tank. Is the oil changed? Because the car can only function with proper maintenance. Obviously, the gas pedal can be pressed, but at the same time, at a certain point, the gas runs out. At a certain point, certain aspects of the vehicle will need maintenance. And if we just keep pushing the gas, thinking, oh no, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. I can just push a little longer. Oh, I have one more mile left. It's okay. But at a certain point, I feel like, there is a time where your body says, hey man, I did my best. And I think teeth are actually the best example of this because with people, especially teeth are 100% minerals. Teeth are basically designed to hold the line as long as possible until they can't. Right. And that's when you have cavities. That's when you start having, certain things in your mouth start falling apart. You're having losing teeth. You're losing this, and this happens through decades. This is not an overnight thing. But at the same time, uh, but that also, we're not going to get into how teeth affect every organ and losing certain things and getting certain things pulled out affects different things. That's a whole different, episodes in itself if we really want to talk about just mouth health. But I feel like this is it's a very we're still in the stomach, but at the same time, you can see how interconnected everything is with your organs, with how you're doing, how basically your body is just a genius organism that's wanting to function at its peak capacity, but you just got to give it some proper gas and some proper love and some proper attention. And it really, more or less, honestly, and I'm still a strong component, it doesn't matter how toxic your environment is, as long as you're giving yourself, obviously, you should remove yourself from certain things, like if there's pesticides that are constantly happening, or this, or whatever's happening in the things, or if you're next to a nuclear power plant or whatever craziness that you could be exposed to. But I believe no matter the toxins we're exposed to, if your body is nourished, it can handle a lot,
It
like a
can,
lot.
yes,
Yeah.
but exactly
Yeah.
because
Obviously
when you
there's a point, and
Mhm,
there's certain things that, you have to be mindful of. But for the most part, I'm a strong proponent of keep your body in proper shape and it'll take care of you, right?
mhm,
Because obviously the world is not clean and the world is a little challenging. The water is not the greatest, the food is not the greatest, but with just enough awareness, enough attention, we can go a really long way.
we can, but actually it
Yeah,
tells also because there's increasing number of people with environmental sensitivity.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely our body can handle a lot, but I always picture this as a bucket where you can put quite a bit to the bucket, but at some point it will drip.
A little overwhelming.
Absolutely. And the moment it does it, it's already quite, let's say, late. You have to give a lot of work to empty that bucket.
So it's like
But
debt, essentially. Like,
emptying the
yeah,
bucket or even not letting the bucket to be filled with too much of things. And we mentioned just environmental toxins, but we have to think also about other toxins that are inside us, like the bacterial toxins and emotional toxins. So the minerals are the number one. Without minerals, and you will not detox well because all the detox processes in the liver, in the kidney, and so on depend on minerals.
and hydration as well, and
And
proper hydration.
yes,
Right?
well, that's another topic.
That's a
What's
whole
a
different. Yeah.
proper
I think
hydration?
that's a large intestine conversation.
Yes, we didn't get there yet. It's still a
Yeah,
long way. We still have 6 meters of small intestine to
yeah.
go through.
Why not? Why not?
When you are nourished, you can handle many things for years and years. The point is how to nourish the body. We are bombarded with food pyramid, what's okay, what's not okay, and new diets, new ideas, and so on. Yeah, I agree. They are diets which I'm also using with my clients when they are in, let's say, acute state. I can also tell about my gut story. I've been suffering with gut issue since I was 20 years old. And for 15 years, I had awful problems with digestion, mostly diarrhea and like lack of nutrients because of that. And I tried so many diets. Then I found that one particular diet, I went, into it fully, not just like 80, 90%. And in few months, I managed to calm down my belly just by the way I was eating. And what actually is the, let's say, proper diet? When somebody sometimes asks me, like, okay, what you will advise me? Well, I will not advise just like that because I need to know the whole
Of course, it's
history
very,
of the
very
health.
specific.
It's
Yeah.
nothing like general, it's not for everybody. Yeah, we all are different. But whatever
And
I always say,
an acute diet and a normal diet is a very different thing as well. Like, for example, many people can recover
absolutely.
very well on carnivore. And basically, anytime you take out processed food, an acute diet, like diets that are very good for a short amount of time to get you out of chronic symptoms.
Mhm,
Because obviously, when you're so inflamed and so specific, it's like with the medical medium, he focuses on people that are in chronic pain. And that doesn't mean the majority of people, it just means those that are in such inflammational states that they have to focus specifically on a diet. But that doesn't mean that those diets are necessarily are necessary for people that with milder conditions or
mhm,
just want to reduce the inflammation levels or want to do more maintenance type of approaches,
mhm.
catch certain symptoms before they get too bad. So
Yeah.
how would you define, and then because you said you prescribe diets specifically to your clients that are very specific for very specific conditions because everyone's biome is different, right?
Mhm,
Where I might say, you just learn to listen to your body and just eat what you want in that moment, which is not scientifically sound for most people's minds. But for the
mhm,
most part, that is when you listen to your body's intelligence, and I'll keep saying this until my face goes blue, If you listen to your body's intelligence, everything becomes better. It's not as shiny and as fancy in scientific terms, but that's essentially what knows you better than anybody else and or
Your
any
own
other protocol.
body.
Exactly.
Your
But until
body.
obviously you get that's a muscle that needs to be trained and to listen to
Mm-hmm.
and to really feel and also disconnect from other let's just say organisms you might have that are wanting also certain things and wanting also specific nutrients and different things. So training your discernment biologically, not just intuitively, to discern what is an actual need to what is a craving. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
also, but that's it's a little bit more complex too. In my personal opinion, I don't agree diets are a thing, need to be a thing. Like figure out what works for you and just live that way. That's a diet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in very specific situations, you need to cut out and you need to figure out what is causing symptoms. So you might have to start being very restrictive for a short period of time and figuring out what is causing inflammation, what isn't causing inflammation, what can I put back in the system, what can I not put back into my diet. So there could be a period of a few weeks to a few months where that might be very necessary, and that's specifically what you're prescribing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes, the diet is not forever. I mean, the treatment diet. When I write down to people, to my clients, what they should eat, what they shouldn't eat, that particular period of time, they usually are scared and say like, "Oh my God, Anita, do I have to follow this to the end of my life?" And I said, "No, it's just until you get better, until the system will calm down and start to balance." So you can start to incorporate other food. So again, the diet, which is for the treatment time, it's totally different diet than, let's say, diet, which is should be your lifestyle, should be the way you eat. We call this still diet, yeah, but it should be the way you eat. So of course there are different diets that are supposed to heal, let's say, gut. They are supposed to support people with cancer. But my general, let's say, advice, and it's not a medical advice. Let's agree here that whatever we say, it's not a medical advice. My opinion about, let's say, lifestyle diet is to eat as organic as possible, unprocessed food, and without simple sugars. That means this fast absorbing sugars, pretty much too much sweets. Yeah, every now and then something sweet is good because we want to also enjoy this life. But let's say not on everyday basis and not few times per day, and not processed fats. So like seed oils, which we just discussed about. And if you follow this and you have as balanced as possible, that means you eat also very diverse foods, colorful foods, because the color is not just, for our visual pleasure, but it also tells what kind of compounds are in the food, or especially in the plants. Potato will have different compounds than tomato because it's different color, different polyphenols. The more colorful plate it is, the better. But also, my general advice would be to eat simple. To keep our digestion system working is also to simplify what we have on our plate. Because if you have 20, 30 ingredients on one plate, think now what your stomach has to do, what your digestion enzyme has to do for another few hours. So I have a protein, I have fat, and I have carbohydrates. If I have a protein, I have just one source of protein. I don't eat in the same meal like lentils with chicken, with eggs. It's too much to digest. So go simple, go unprocessed, organic as possible. Home.
mixing certain things can be, like you said,
That's the thing, and that should be the lifestyle diet. Yeah, this is how people, let's say, should eat. And
yeah.
then if we think about social media and all of this, like what's good, what's not good. I mean, again, you listen to your body, what you said, but that requires a bit of exercise at time. Also, like don't follow into the fancy diets because it says, okay, this will be good for your blood pressure, this will be good for your gut, this will be good for another thing. It's like not one thing is good for everybody. We have to remember that the longer we follow some diet, we change also the composition of our gut microbes. We only eat, let's say, meat. Let's say we are on the carnivore diet. It will totally change the composition of the microbes. Then, for example, if we eat plant-based diet, we need also plants there because there's a fiber, and the fiber is something that our microbe is eating, and it produces so-called short-chain fatty acids that are the food for our cells that lay down across the whole colon. By eating diverse type of food, we also give diverse compounds to our gut flora to keep that gut flora also very diverse. The more diverse the gut flora, the better health we have.
This has been a great, understanding of basically the stomach, but also the supporting organs all around. We had the liver, the pancreas, the biles, the everything that's happening to support the journey now going into the small intestine, right? So how does the small intestine function?
So we move from the duodenum, when exactly the bile and the digestive enzyme from the pancreas meet, and we are now in the small intestine. So yes, whatever happened in the duodenum is still a bit happening in the small intestine, but the food is already so processed to single, let's say, molecules. So the molecules can be absorbed. And why it's so long? Because that also the amount of food we eat, it's quite a big, so it cannot be that short, intestine to be able to absorb so much from the food. So we start to absorb sugar. We start to absorb, well, sugar is already absorbed in the mouth, but we absorb more sugar there. We absorb amino acids. We absorb fat particles. We start to absorb also different minerals and vitamins. Not all, because some of the vitamins are also produced in the big colon, like some of the B vitamins and K. But this is why it's so long, because the whole process of absorption takes time, and it needs to be very coordinated process. So we need again hormonal signals there. We need nervous system signals and so on. We have different transporters which are on the, let's say, membrane of the cells in the intestine and villi that actually increase the let's say the area of absorption. Because if you had just flat wall of the intestine, that's, let's say, a limited absorption area. But if this wall is formed as a wave, so of course there's more space to absorb the nutrients. And not only because also our immune system is mostly located in the gut. So that's why we need so long intestines, not just for the absorption, but also properly working immune system. And then
how does the immune system function in the gut? So it goes down this whole journey, and then what specifically, like, why would your white blood cells be going to your gut? For what reason? Because really, for what most people understand, the gut is just basically the delivery system to extract nutrients and food, and then now probably start shuttling it through the bloodstream to different aspects of the organs, the brain, the bones, the muscles, all this stuff, right? So how does the immune system play into all of this?
The immune system has to recognize also whatever comes to us through our digestion system, and that's
Like a
why
security.
it's a security. Yeah, it's trained to do that. So that's why so much of the compounds of the immune system are located in our digestive system, because of whatever we eat, is it safe or not safe for us? Is it poison or not poison? It's also for any microbial infections. If you eat food which is, let's say, spoiled, we need also immune system to work at this particular place to protect us from that infection, and also protect us from the disbalance of the gut flora. Yeah, because in the small intestine, there shouldn't be much of the bacteria. And if it's happening, then people usually suffer from so-called SIBO, so small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, SIFO, when it's the fungal overgrowth, and so on. When you exit the small intestine, we have appendix there. Appendix is a place for our immune system.
Would you say the appendix is kind of like like a little police headquarters for
It is.
for like
Yeah.
for the immune system? And because most people don't see it as anything. But so if the quote unquote terrorists take over the police station, then obviously that part becomes unusable, right? And it becomes very painful, and then obviously it has to be removed. So in that kind of funny way of looking at it, that is the kind of like the checkpoint that you would have like in countries, right? And like because food is moving, right? And at a certain point it has to show its documents, show its biological credibilities, and then keep moving, making sure it has all the proper visas, to get into
Yeah.
the large intestine.
Yeah, but it's very overlooked.
Yeah.
Very overlooked because you can still live without appendix.
Do you want to speak about the protection of it? What causes an appendicitis? Right. And then because we mentioned pinworms, but like what is the typical like culprit of why people and why maybe even children sometimes have that. And then how to create a lifestyle that creates a very significant decrease in potential risks of having any form of issues with your appendix.
Stress.
Stress.
Again,
Okay.
everything goes
Yeah.
to stress. All these factors which I said at the beginning of this discussion. So again, environmental toxin, we have gut dysbiosis, lower production of the stomach acid, lower, let's say, flow of the bile. Everything matters. But I would say number one of any gut problems is actually chronic stress.
Would you say, because obviously many people are dealing with chronic stress, what do you think is the most simplest route we can take to manage that? Do you believe it's being more present with ourselves? Like we mentioned, all of these very simple things we can do while even just eating food or how we eat food. But then obviously that can bleed into other aspects of our life where the more present you are, and to define a little bit presence before I give you the mic, presence is being in the moment and not being stuck in what you believe was and what you're worried about being. So that means you're not stuck in the past, and you're also not worried about the future. In the moment, everything happens, and if we go on a much deeper route, that's all that is existing, and everything else is just distraction from being here. And I think that's probably the foundational aspect of stress is we're stuck between uh, being anywhere but here, right? But from your perspective, from maybe a biological perspective, what is stressors that can be avoided, and how can we balance, bring more ease into our daily lives?
Full presence is quite difficult and tricky to achieve for most of the
Yeah,
people. Let's be honest.
of
So
course.
whatever, like mentally, what we can do, is just practice gratitude. The more we notice little things and we are grateful about them, even that, oh my God, sun came today. Oh, I have a glass of water now. And we are grateful. And by being grateful, we just don't think, oh yeah, I'm grateful, but we really give emotions of happiness and joy into what we think we are
Yeah,
grateful
for
about.
everything that's available for you in this moment.
Yeah, that will already create a feeling of abundance. Yes. So it will release the
Yeah,
amount of stress about the future also. Because
yeah,
usually we worry about the future. Oh, will I have enough of money to cover the bills? Will I have this and that? So just by practicing gratitude, you can already lower that amount of stress. Calming down before eating, calming down during
yeah.
the day. You take like 2 minutes 3 times per day. 5 minutes 3 times per day, which is not much. It's a quarter of an hour per day just for relax. And from another, like not related to the mind, but more, let's say, more environmental stressors, it's actually the toxins we are surrounding ourselves with. People usually think that, oh my God, like my face lotion will not affect my digestion. It's nothing more wrong, because our skin is the biggest organs, and whatever you put on your skin through the circulation will get to the liver, and then through, to the bile, also to the intestine, will affect our gut flora. It will affect the integrity of the gut lining.
What would you say about like perfumes and different things because people use quite a bit of that, like, and because at least I'm walking by, like I haven't used perfumes maybe in a few years now, just because I physically cannot, I don't like that on my body anymore, and I don't like to smell it. But also, it's very interesting when you smell something, that smell, when you're smelling is you're not just smelling vague things, you're actually smelling particles in the air, right?
Mhm.
So, like for example, if you're smelling gasoline, that's, at least the compound they put into gasoline that makes it give a smell. When you're smelling it, it's actually entering your system and eventually into your bloodstream, because anything you're breathing is getting in your, into your lungs, and your lungs extract the oxygen, but they also extract whatever else is in there. So that could be, secondhand cigarette smoke, that could be exhaust, that could be, gasoline, that could be perfumes, that could be all these things. And nobody thinks about that as a stressor in your life. But, obviously when you're living in in smog, in a city and different stuff, slowly that does also activate, potentially respiratory issues, potential heavier toxic load into your
Endocrine
body.
disruption.
Exactly. So what are the things that you would advise people, from your opinion? Like I said, we're not giving any medical advice, but from your opinion as a professional, what would you advise people to stay away from as much as possible? And if they're using it right now, just give people like a second thought of probably best to take that out of your lifestyle.
I totally agree. I also cannot use it. Like I was, let's say, suffering from multiple chemical sensitivity, so perfumes were absolute no-no. And I see, and actually there are statistics showing that more and more people suffer from the use of perfumes. So starting from the headaches, going even to the respiratory diseases like asthma. Out of the perfumes, definitely synthetic perfumes. And why? We don't know what is in the bottle. Perfume companies, there's a general legislation that they don't have to tell the ingredients of the perfumes because
Proprietary. Yeah.
Exactly. We don't know what it is, but one perfume can contain hundreds of chemicals. 60-70% of those compounds were never studied. How toxic they are, even on the, let's say, in vitro, that means like artificially grown cells, not tested on animals, luckily. And we don't know the impact on our health. Combination of that, like whole cocktail of these chemicals, it's a bomb that eventually will explode. And we see that because more and more people suffer from hormonal dysregulation.
What is the first signs you see that your body's just overloaded with, let's just say, with olfactory kind of like headache?
Or
Yeah.
nausea, like the quick neurological symptoms, headache, nausea, maybe dizziness. Over the time, when the body already starts to struggle with removal of those endocrine symptoms. So again, maybe blood sugar disbalance, thyroid problem, which goes further with the energy drop, with mental clarity, and so on. Skin issues, respiratory issues, it's a big list. The unfortunate is that perfumes are added now everywhere, even on the toilet paper.
Yeah,
Seriously.
that's awful. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
It's awful.
Even on garbage bags. Also, what about cleaning products? Because that, perfumes, that's one thing, but everybody just about uses cleaning products.
Yeah,
So
that's number
what are we
two.
talking about? Like, because obviously there's the sprays that you use, obviously, when you create a nice smell in your bathroom after a movement.
It's called air freshener, and I'm not saying it's like air killer.
It's the same. I wouldn't even say the air fresheners are probably even worse than perfumes. because whatever they're putting in there, just because people smell nice doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
nice. And we can also talk about candles. That's a whole different
Yes,
topic because
yes. So I would say
yeah,
number one, remove everything what gives you strong smell, which kind of smell.
yeah,
It's artificial smell,
yeah.
yeah. Whatever it
That's
has
not natural,
perfumes, what
obviously.
is
It's not
not
like
natural.
flowers. It's
Then
not like, yeah.
we come to essential oils. For people who are not sensitive, essential oils can be okay, but they have terpenes, for example, which is some group of chemicals that are also a bit irritated. So you have to be really careful. I use essential oils only for therapeutic reasons. So, for example, if I have a flu, I will do inhalation with some essential oils, or I will make a wrap and really put on my chest. Just spraying or diffusing essential oil because of the smell, I do not recommend. So, synthetic cleaning products out of the home, absolutely. The simple way to clean the home is soda, lemon juice, or vinegar for those who are very sensitive to vinegar. And that's it. And you can clean literally full your house with that.
What about soaps that have obviously every dish soap or something has some kind of chemical, some kind of ingredient.
Mhm.
Is like, would you say to avoid those soaps, or they're not as bad? Like, to scrub your pans with, or
Some soaps have compounds that are very toxic, and you can go into even internet and look for the names and just check if in the ingredient list of that soap. There are nowadays more and more natural products, yeah, herbal based, like plant based products
but even
that
that you
are.
would say is best to avoid as much as you can, like all the big name brands or basically anything that.
I've been searching for different products, even for myself, natural. Let's say like that. Natural doesn't always equal with healthy. Yeah, natural means that it's produced with some natural compounds. Maybe there is some herb or other plant. You have to look at the ingredients, because I noticed many even soaps or shampoos which were called natural included perfume. And by name, just perfume, you can have hundreds of ingredients, as I
It's crazy.
just told. So really look at the ingredients. The shorter list, the better. And if there are names which sounds crazy, like they really sounds like you would be at the organic chemistry lesson, don't buy it. Washing clothes can be soda and nuts. Yeah, there are special this kind of washing nuts because they contain saponins, the compound that create foam, and they really
Okay.
naturally wash the clothes. This is how I wash my clothes since years. Naturally
That's a whole
wash.
nother option, like, laundry detergent, because what actually stays on the clothes after you clean, it might smell nice once again,
It
but at
comes
the
through
same
the
time,
skin. Mhm.
exactly. But so all of these little things, it could be a little overwhelming to some that are just being like, holy shit, like there's a lot of things in my life. But when we're talking about stress, and if stress is the main cause of illness, we're not just talking about, the physical stresses of life, like the financial stresses, your work stresses, your family stresses. We're talking about very physical, biological stresses that
Mhm.
can be more or less easily taken out of your life with a little bit of effort of replacing it with something more bio sensitive
Mhm.
to you. So
And if I can add, because we are talking about the digestion. So also, let's say the pots, the plates we are
oh,
using,
yes.
yeah,
Uh,
people cook or fry on Teflon-based pans, or some,
or they scratch metal pans as
yeah,
well.
even in old times, like aluminum-based pots,
Yeah,
only stainless steel, iron cast,
yeah, cast iron, yeah,
yes, or glass, and then you put to the oven.
yeah,
And
or like a
storing
ceramic
food,
base potentially as well.
yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
storing food in glass containers, never plastic, never warm the plastic. Plastic also out of the home because it
yeah.
will eventually destroy the.
Microplastics are a whole different story that it's just so
Mhm.
difficult. I still, drink from like plastic bottles, but that's a whole
I
different story.
know, I
I know.
told you that.
I know what I'm saying. I've been every time I drink, take a drink here, I'm like, oh man, I'm on a health podcast, and is it just don't look at me in this moment right now.
Well, there are many nice filter
Yeah,
bottles, which people
that's true.
can use. And again, look at the materials, not not filter bottles that are made from plastic, but from
Yeah, that wouldn't
stainless
make any sense.
steel.
It's best to take actions before they need to be actions taken, right? Because when you need to take actions, things are already gotten to a point where they're really, really bad, and your life is going to be, it's already uncomfortable. So if you can think of, hey, I might be feeling good right now, but feeling good does not necessarily mean everything is fine. It's just your body is managing in that moment, right? So
Absolutely.
anytime you can give your body less stress, it can do more with less. Like I've noticed the less stress I've put on my body, the less food I actually need to eat to maintain. Because I'm like 195 centimeter guy, so I used to eat quite a bit of food, and I think like I ate upwards of 4,000 calories a day, and I was almost still hungry. And then more or less I was eating okay, but it was just high volume. And now I'm eating like almost half, like it's 40% less. And I still have the same, I can still build the same muscle, I can still build everything. So it's not necessarily always calories in, calories out, like they say.
Mhm.
There's how efficiently is your body processing those calories and extracting what it needs. Because when it's stressed by all of these little things, because yeah, they seem little, and most people, like, if you're wearing perfume, you're like, oh, wow, I smell good. But like, you're literally in a cloud of that all day. And because it's designed to last for a long time. And like, if you do it for weeks to months to years, you can imagine how much your body is filtering this, because obviously somehow your body needs to remove all of these
Mhm.
things. So if you add 10, 15, 20 different stimulus, and many of those stimulus you can't avoid, like pollution in the air and different things like that, certain things, okay, you're going to have to deal with. But if you can avoid and take some out, it only is going to benefit your level of stress and your metabolic demands that your body has to move through. Because it's like, yes, just because you have a filter doesn't mean you can throw everything into that filter and
The
hope it
filter will
holds.
clog at some point.
Exactly. At a
Mhm.
certain point, like, just because you have a filter and it's a really good quality filter that does all of these things, doesn't mean it doesn't have a specific limit until you have to change the filter. Because every filter gets, overwhelmed at a certain point, and then you have to replace it, right? We don't have the option of buying a new filter and replacing it in our body. We have to go through a cleaning of the filter. And that can be a longer process if
It can
as
be
you know
challenging also
very
for the
challenging,
body.
especially because
Mhm.
that's basically more or less the majority of the work you do with your clients is, hey, your
Mhm.
filter is pretty messed up. We need to start focusing on it, right? So now we kind of have a little bit of the journey of how can we reduce stress, how the obviously certain stresses add to specific diseases or potential removal of specific organs. So we're moving down, I think, into the larger intestine, unless you have anything to mention about the small intestine still. But I think with the larger intestine, from my understanding, it's more of it's absorption of water, right? It's taking out now, not really, it's not, this job isn't much about nutrients anymore. It's about how the hydration. It's like how much
Mhm.
volume is in the stool, how much is still left for, and now we're going towards basically the evacuation process of
Mhm. Yes, so
another.
it's not
Yeah,
just about the
yeah.
water. It's the place for majority of the bacteria in our body. So the function of the gut is related actually to the function of the microbes. So it's to process fiber in that foods. It's to produce special vitamins. It's still to support and maintain to some extent the immune system. It's to remove the waste, all the metabolic waste or emotional waste. If we don't, let's say, excrete what we were eating on a regular basis, that means daily, really daily, what's happening in the bowel is that the toxins that are in the stool will be reabsorbed Yeah, there are also ways to stop that to some extent using natural approaches, but that's not the ideal. The ideal is to excrete, and that's where the bile helps us. Yeah, it helps us to move the bowel, to push whatever we were eating, but also the microbes. If we have proper composition of the microbes, then the movement, so-called peristalsis, will go as it should. Ideally, the bowel opening should be at least once per day, usually in the morning, yeah, because the morning is exactly the time when the bowel has the most power, so it's the best time to release what was stored there. The function of the bowel is not just related to the water. It, in some extent, it can also regulate a sugar level because they are sugar transporters. Then, of course, nutrients because there's a sodium also transporters. But majority is exactly the water, but also related to food, the immune system, and production of the vitamins.
Many people also carry quite a bit of waste still within themselves, like upwards of like 20 to like, 30 pounds, or that would even be like 15 kilograms of waste that's impacted all over. Would this be mostly stored in the large intestine or in the smaller intestine? And then why does certain things store? And sometimes people are constipated. Sometimes, so how does the function of what your body chooses to like hold on to, or why you might hold on to quite a bit of a waste that's not actually properly being removed?
Well, it can be in any part of the intestine, so in small intestine and in the large intestine. If there's dehydration, so people you don't take enough of water, that's usually when the constipation starts. This is the simple, let's say, cause of constipation. So I
Maybe
usually
drinking
ask
too much
like
caffeine that acts as a
that
diuretic.
dehydrates. Yeah. I see in many of my clients that they tell me that I cannot go to the toilet if I don't drink coffee. So why? Because the bowel got used to it, to that stimulant. Over time, it also dehydrates us. The more dehydrated we are, the more
The harder the stool
constipation.
becomes,
Mm-hmm.
and the less it is going to come out. And if it does come out, it actually could damage the opening as well, and you can have bleeding and all that stuff, which is
Absolutely.
unfortunate.
We have to let the bowel to work by itself. So of course, sometimes we need the stimulus, and I'm very against very harsh stimulus. There are some plants which work like that, but there are more also plants that work based of osmosis. So it's more, let's say, a softer way to move what should be moved out. Again, whatever it is happening with our bowel, is it the diarrhea or is it the constipation, working on the mindset and stabilizing the nervous system is the key.
Yeah, I think we're gonna even ended up talking in a whole nother episode about like the nervous system and energetic aspects and the emotional components out, and we'll kind of take a very similar journey of from food to exit of the food through a different perspective. But here we're going to really focus on just basically up until the point until the bowels evacuate. So what I wanted
But
to ask here is
mhm,
what is the evacuation cycle of like, is you were saying that the body, for example, I know has many different cocktails of adrenaline that it will use to act on specific things, and the evacuation process, like that your body will use to let go of certain things, has a very specific stimulus that is necessary for the contractions to happen in your lower intestines to basically start a bowel movement, right?
mhm.
So when you're relying, let's say, on a stimulant outside of you, your body says, okay, I don't need this stimulant within me, right? So, and this happens with everything that's in homeostasis. Let's say if with men, if they take testosterone, their natural testosterone is not needed to be created as much at that point. So
Same with
everything you, yeah,
contraceptive pills,
exactly.
quite
Or
often
yeah, exactly.
women take for quite many years contraceptive pills, then they stop and suddenly the period doesn't come for even a year. because the ovaries got the signal, well, I got the artificial hormones, why should I do my job?
Exactly. And that the body has a very specific balance that if interrupted, can take a little while to start moving again. Hopefully, there is no permanent effects. But for the most part, there's always a way to reestablish some form of homeostasis back into body, even in severe situations, I would imagine. How would, like, let's just say someone's constipated or someone's having a really difficult time going to the bathroom, or they're maybe holding on to quite a bit of, like we said, waste, let's say upwards of 10 kilograms of just compacted stool. Would you recommend colonics? How would you recommend to flush that? Or would you more recommend a natural kind of supplement that slowly starts cleaning out the extra mass that is accumulated in their gut and potentially is rotting for however long?
Colonics are a good idea, but I think they are good for the emergency.
So
During like really heavy detox process, when you really need to be sure that you remove everything what you try to detox from. So colonics only for the emergency, because over time the bowel will also get lazy. Yeah, there are different schools and different ideas about that, but what I see also that definitely the bowel will slow down, and then it takes few days before it catches up its own rhythm. And then people think, oh my God, I have again constipation. So I start again with colonics, and then it continues and continues, and the bowel cannot catch its own cycle.
Let your body use its own mechanisms because they're brilliant as they are. And the more you supplement, the outsiders you're saying that's why you use them as emergencies. Because the more you supplement something that you don't need, be it a biochemical or physical removal of certain things or addition of certain things, that should be used in a mindful dose because your body has a homeostasis that it needs to constantly operate. So it's basically saying, don't get in the way of your body's processes, but make it easier and reduce the stress load it has so it can continue functioning as it's designed to function.
Exactly. And as health practitioner, I always look at the root cause and I address only the root cause. So, and the root cause will be different for everybody. But like overall, I would say to really balance the gut, you have to go through some process. Yeah. And we're not talking about the emotional process because we will talk this in the part 2 of this gut topic. But I would say number 1 is to remove the factors that irritate the digestion. Yeah, so is it inflammatory foods or processed foods, potential infection also? Number 2 would be replace. That means that you have to replace the missing factors that are there to help at digesting. So you have to support the bioflow. You have to support the production of acid in the stomach. You have to support the digestion enzyme production. Then you have to focus on reinoculating, actually bringing the good bacteria back to our gut through the diet, because without the properly balanced microflora, the constipation or diarrhea will keep going. After reinoculating means the bringing the good bacteria, you have to repair the gut, because whatever was there, the gut lining for sure was already damaged, and you do it using herbs, using the supplement, use it meditation. You wrap it with rebalancing your whole daily life. So you start to exercise, you focus on the deep breathing, you focus on spending time also with yourself, spending time in the nature. So when you ask me like how to how to quickly fix the gut, it's not like one quick fix. It's a multi-layer process that it has to be.
And we're just speaking about maybe like
Physical.
30% of it, the physical.
Absolutely. We are talking about the physical thing.
Even if you're perfect on the physical department, there's still so many other factors and everything that have to play that will create challenges in your healing journey. Let's just say it that way, on the multi-dimensional level of your body.
Absolutely. Because if you don't address other factors like emotional factors, even spiritual factors, and you focus on the physical health, you will start to work well to some time. again, something will happen. Even small change will eventually start the whole war again inside the bowel because the other layers were not addressed. I wrote that in more details in my book about the gut healing. And it's like step by step how you address the whole gut at the physical level. I also mentioned
the link to that in the comments. Yeah.
Yes, we can put the link there. I mentioned there shortly also about the emotional, energetic, and spiritual approaches because the physical is just a part.
Now that we're talking about now that we kind of wrapped up with the large intestine and how it functions with the biome, with holding basically a lot of mass. Now now obviously it has to leave from now our body, right? When it leaves our body, also information with that, right? So when the stool, let's say when you stool in your toilet, it's not a very attractive thing to look, but at the same time, it's also very how it looks like, if it's diarrhea, if it's solid, and what basically kind of poop emoji is showing into your toilet, because how it smells and how it looks, and basically that gives you a quite with enough information, it can tell you what quality of gut you're. I mean, because I've noticed with my own personal journey, when it smells when you go, there's imbalance. There's something going. When it doesn't smell, more or less, it doesn't necessarily mean it's 100%, but it's healthier, I would imagine. And obviously, you are very versed in this department. You really know your shit. So.
Oh yeah, I love that topic. I love
So
also other topics I would like to mention here.
Can you give us some guidelines of what to look for and what tells what basically in the toilet bowl?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting topic, because even in old times, doctors were really asking about the stool. They don't do this anymore because the modern medicine is so disconnected from the, let's say, real root cause medicine. But okay, for everybody, like you can Google Bristol stool chart, and it gives you a picture of, let's say, 7 poops with different consistency and what it means. So of course the most ideal would be to have a so-called sausage looking stool, which is warm, which is brown, which doesn't smell. If it's more loose towards diarrhea, towards watery, and it still smells intensively, it usually tells us about some bacterial imbalance. When it's too hard, it's like a droplets almost, that will tell that you are dehydrated, or you are lacking fiber in your diet. The stool looks really slimy, let's say very fatty, and doesn't just flush, it just stays and floats, let's say. It may tell a lot about your bile function and the biliary duct function. This usually means that the fat was not digested well, so you are lacking the properly functioning bile, or you are eating too much fat also in the diet. There could be also bacterial disbalance. When the color also matters, the very, let's say, pale may tell us about the bile problem, the liver problem. More greenish, yellowish will tell about infection in the gut, or very dark, like even a black looking stool can give a hint towards some internal bleeding. That's exactly the poop you have to check with medical professionals. Of course, the smell, as I mentioned, usually it shouldn't smell. It should be very neutral. Of course, it shouldn't smell like a roses because it will never smell like a roses. If it's really,
I think that's only for women, but yeah.
No, it's only in your imagination, maybe. So observe your poop.
Okay, just let me keep my imagine that women poop roses.
Yeah, just think what you want to think, if that helps you. I would advise everybody to really start looking at their own stool. So there are
please.
several
Yes.
red flags
Yes.
that you can look for. And usually the red flag is already the change in the consistency, change how often your bowel is opening. The really red flag is when you have blood in the stool. It can be dark or it can be light red color, or you have a diarrhea, very chronic diarrhea, or very like chronic constipation. So even both will already tell that there is some deeper problem and you have to look for the root cause of it. So don't ignore your stool. Learn to look at it every day, observe, look at the Bristol stool chart, and then compare your stool into it. Of course, some variation can be there. It depends what you eat. Sometimes you eat too much, let's say fiber, and your stool may feel maybe more loose. That's okay. But if this particular type of stool, which is not normal, which is not like form brown, will continue over time, then it's something you really have to address. I know it sounds a bit disgusting to check toilet every day. Looking at the stool can be like your own home test before even you go for more expensive or more invasive tests. So I think we came to the end of this journey when we talk about the physical aspects of our digestive system. But we will talk more in our next episode, in part 2 of this gut story, when we will discuss more about the emotions, energetic and spiritual link to our digestion. So please stay tuned and see you in our next episode. Thank you so much. This was a Source Medicine podcast.